This Day in Sports History. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural and with a wide variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne, there's a product and a scent for everybody. And I'm not just saying that. I'm an actual customer. I've been buying Sterling Soap for over a year now, sampling different products and scents along the way, and I have not come across a single scent that I don't like yet. Check them out for yourself at sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com. Oh, hey there, fellow sports history enthusiasts. You have found the only 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 366 in a leap year, sports history podcast. This is episode number 700, and I'm closing in on 2 solid years of doing this thing. This Day in Sports History is a member of the Sports History Network, and you can find more podcasts at sportshistorynetwork.com. It is October 30th, and on this day up and down the sports history timeline, we had a hockey player nearly die in a freak accident, a football player who actually did die during a game, leading to football being outlawed, and if not for a mother's letter, our college football landscape today may be very different. Plus, the NBA got a lot more exciting, the NHL got a little bit safer, and Muhammad Ali became a lot more attractive, as in a future opponent, that is, not in the looks department. All that along with a non-sports fun fact about Andre the Giant that you may not have known about. But let's start with what happened on this day, or around this day in 1935, when an NHL player nearly got strangled to death during practice. Now, I don't have a specific date for when this happened, but it was near the start of the 1935-36 season. The actual date doesn't really matter, but Herb Cain had been in the league for a few years at this point. Still, he had not lost that little kid zeal about getting on the ice, no matter if it was practice or a game. Well, at this point, Cain was playing with the Montreal Maroons, and Maroons coach Tommy Gorman was not a big fan of his players skating behind the net to start a rush to the opposite end. He considered it cheating. Well, during one particular preseason practice, he got especially perturbed with his veterans skating behind the net to set up an assault on the opposite end. So, to put an end to this so-called cheating and to break what he considered a bad habit, Gorman set up ropes behind the goal, tethered between the goalpost and extended to the sideboards. Before Gorman could alert his players to the ropes prior to the next practice, Cain jumped on the ice and skated towards a puck which just so happened to be next to the goal. He was laser focused on the puck and he never saw the ropes. Skating at about 20 miles per hour, Cain hit the ropes at full speed right at neck level. The rope snagged him while his momentum kept him going on the ice. Teammate Toe Blake remembered him swinging around like a pinwheel a couple of times before collapsing to the ice, hitting the back of his head. The rope had wrapped itself around his neck several times, and it took a few moments for help to arrive and begin the untangling process. He was unconscious for the next half hour, with Gorman pacing nervously, believing he'd just killed one of his players. Fortunately for everybody concerned, Cain regained consciousness and he did not suffer any long-term effects. He turned into a pretty solid hockey player in the league as well, and he led the NHL in goals in the 1943-44 season. Moving back in time to the 19th century, tragedy did strike on this day in 1897 when University of Georgia football player Richard von Gammon died after suffering a horrible injury during a football game. Now, football is still a pretty violent game, but with great strides in helmet technology and protection, it is not a deadly game anymore. But back in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, padding was nearly non-existent, and of course, those mustachioed college kids were not putting helmets on their domes. Helmets did start showing up in the mid-1890s, but not many players wore them, and they were not mandated in college football until 1939. On this day, the Georgia 11 were playing the University of Virginia down the road in Atlanta's Brisbane Park. Both teams and their supporters rolled in on the train for the game. Georgia was 2-0 on the season after shutout wins against Clemson and Georgia Tech. The Virginia Orange and Blue were 2-1, hoping to bounce back from a 42-0 thrashing at the hands of Penn 2 weeks before. Now, this was obviously early days of football. There was not any forward passing. It was more like rugby than what we know of football today. A lot of the plays were tosses to a speedy runner, and a big mass would run in front and block in the hopes of gaining some yardage. In the second half of this game, Virginia had the football and they ran one of these mass plays. Von Gammon started the play about 15 yards off the line of scrimmage, and when he saw the mass of Virginia players moving, he gained a full head of steam, leapt over the blockers in an attempt to tackle the ball carrier, but he missed. He crashed down to the ground, hitting chin first on the hard Georgia clay. The collision of Virginia players and Georgia players caused the mass to trip and fall, and a lot of that collective weight came down on Von Gammon. When the referees whistled the play dead, every player but Von Gammon got up. 2 doctors rushed out of the stands to attend to the 17-year-old sophomore and quickly realized he had suffered a concussion and he needed to go immediately to Grady Hospital. His parents were alerted to their child's substantial injury and made it to his bedside a short while later. Von Gammon died in the early morning hours of the 31st. The reaction was nearly immediate. Several players quit the team. The University of Georgia canceled the remainder of the season and disbanded the football squad. Georgia Tech and Mercer followed suit by canceling the rest of their games and disbanding their football programs. On November 1st, a bill was introduced in both the Georgia Senate and the State House to ban football, making it a misdemeanor to play the game anywhere in the state. The bills passed by a collective vote of 122 for, 7 against. Now, it's kind of hard to think about in today's culture and society, but at the time, Southern evangelicals were opposed to any sort of athletic endeavor. There were some who saw athletics as a northern invention and that sports interfered with the academic mission of a college and led to the demoralization of society. Everybody seemed to be opposed to the game. Everybody, that is, except for Von Gammon's mother, Rosalind. On November 5th, she wrote a letter to her representative, and it read, in part, "His love for his college and his interest in all manly sports, without which he deemed the highest type of manhood impossible, is well known by his classmates and friends, and it would be inexpressibly sad to have the cause he held so dear injured by his sacrifice. Grant me the right to request that my boy's death should not be used to defeat the most cherished object of his life." After reading Mrs. Von Gammon's letter, Georgia Governor William Yates Atkinson vetoed both bills, saying that he believed the bill went beyond the proper limits of legislation. The Georgia legislature was furious at the governor's veto, and they tried to override it, needing a 2/3 majority to do that. It fell 10 votes shy, no doubt with many of those legislators swayed by the mother's letter. In Richard von Gammon's hometown of Rome, Georgia, at the intersection of Broad Street and East 4th Avenue, there is a chiseled marble slab in the sidewalk honoring Rosalind Burns Gammon, who is known in Georgia as the woman who saved football. Looking for that perfect gift for the basketball fan in your life? Basketball Now is it. Newly updated for 2025, it spotlights 50 of the NBA's top stars. Think fast breaks, clutch threes, and buzzer beaters, captured in stunning photography with sharp, readable analysis. From rising stars to veteran icons, this book is a courtside pass to the game right now. Wrap up a slam dunk this holiday season. Pick up your copy of Basketball Now today at your favorite bookseller. On this day in 1974, it was the Rumble in the Jungle. Muhammad Ali, the 32-year-old and one-time heavyweight champion, versus George Foreman, the 25-year-old current heavyweight champion, with a perfect 40-0 record, 37 of those wins coming by knockout. Because of his size, his punching power, and his ability to take a punch, Foreman was thought to be, by many, unbeatable. And against an older Ali, he was an overwhelming favorite coming into this one. This fight came about because of Don King and his desire to make a name for himself in the boxing sphere. He'd worked with Ali on a charity fundraising event for a Cleveland hospital earlier in the decade. He promised Ali and Foreman a $5 million purse. The only way to raise that kind of money was to find a willing benefactor, or, in this case, dictator, to put up that kind of money. King arranged with Zaire's ruling dictator, Mobutu Sese Seko, to host the fight and put up the money as a way to showcase the black African nation to the world. King's original slogan to promote this fight was, "From the slave ship to the championship." Mobutu was not a fan of that line, and so King borrowed from Ali's pre-fight poem and called it "The Rumble in the Jungle." In order for the fight to be shown in prime time in the U.S., the fight in Kinshasa started at 4:30 a.m. local time. Now, that was not a deterrent for the 60,000 who gathered in the stadium to watch it. Theaters in the U.S. hosted closed-circuit watch parties, and along with pay-per-view and other closed-circuit outlets around the world, it has been estimated that 1 billion people watched this fight live. Even in the pre-dawn hours, the temperature in the ring at the start of the fight was 80 degrees, and that would play a role into how this fight went. Foreman wanted to shut Ali's mouth quickly and get back home, so he went for several big knockout punches in the opening rounds, but he failed to land anything substantial. Ali absorbed a lot of Foreman's punches with a new strategy put in for this fight: the rope-a-dope. Ali took advantage of the loose ropes around the ring, leaning back into them constantly, and he let Foreman punch his arms and body harmlessly. In the 5th round especially, Ali leaned into the ropes for most of the round, absorbing body shots. The referee actually pulled on the ropes to bring Ali back into the ring, but he continued to lean back. Finally, Ali bounced off the ropes with renewed vigor and ended the round with a flurry.
Right, Ali leans up against the ropes. Right hand taken on the gloves by Ali. Foreman just working the body, hasn't hit Ali except once with the face. Neither fighter has been down. Ali picks it up a little bit, about 40 seconds left with that right. Ali's throwing a good pass, a good right, backs up Foreman. Backs him up in his back. Foreman's selling it. Foreman tries to look. Ali's throws to the right. Foreman can block to the left. Foreman hit again. Foreman has been hit 3 or 4 times. Misses a wild left hand. Ali showing tremendous strength. There's the ball, ending round 5.
In between rounds 5 and 6, adjustments were attempted on the ropes to tighten them up, to prevent Ali from leaning so far back into them. But Ali's trainer Angelo Dundee raced to those workmen and started screaming at them to stop. The ropes never got tightened. In the heat, Foreman's relentless barrage of mostly ineffective punches began to tire him out. Ali counterpunched throughout, connecting several to Foreman's face to cause some puffiness. Ali also clinched Foreman around the neck and pulled him in close. Now, in doing so, Ali put weight onto Foreman in another effort to get Big George to use more energy. After the 5th, Ali screamed at Foreman, "Come on, George, show me something. Is that all you got?" After the 6th, Ali kept taunting Foreman, this time saying, "They told me you could punch, George. They told me you could punch as hard as Joe Louis." And just as Sonny Liston came to realize in his title fight with Ali back in 1964, he could take a beating and he kept coming for you. Foreman realized the same thing in the 7th. After delivering a hard shot to Ali's jaw that would have felled many boxers, Ali whispered in George's ear, "That all you got, George?" Finally, in the 8th round, Ali's strategy paid off. After tiring from his early round exertions, Foreman's hands dropped and he was open to a flurry of Ali punches.
30 seconds left in round 8. Very even fight. Ali, a sneaky right hand. Another sneaky right hand. This time he works over the shoulder of Foreman. It's the combination. 3, 4, 5, 6. Foreman gets up to the knee. 8. That's it. The fight is stopped. Muhammad Ali, a dramatic 8th round knockout.
Ali The underdog coming in beat the unbeatable Foreman, and he was heavyweight champion once again. It was just the second time in heavyweight history that a fighter had regained his title, with Floyd Patterson being the only other one at that point. Ali's win in this fight made the 1975 meeting with Joe Frazier in the Thrilla in Manila not only possible, but a lot more interesting. On this day in 1954, the NBA used a 24-second shot clock for the first time, and the first game that used it featured the Boston Celtics playing the Rochester Royals. This was opening day for the NBA basketball season, and the league had been getting a little tiresome. The novelty of a professional basketball league had worn off, and fans demanded more. Not every game was a low-scoring affair at this point, but if you were an underdog in a game and you got a 6 or 8 point lead in the fourth quarter, then stalling became a way to secure the win. Possessions would last minutes in a lot of cases. The most egregious example was a 1950 game between the Fort Wayne Pistons and the defending champ Minneapolis Lakers, who had 6'10" George Mikan. The Pistons had grabbed a lead, and they took all the air out of the basketball. With a lead and no incentive to shoot it, and playing against the most dominant player in the game at that point, the Pistons stalled for most of that game, and the final score was 19-18, and the combined 37 points is the lowest scoring game in NBA history. In April of 1954, the NBA owners voted to add a shot clock to the game. Syracuse Nationals owner Danny Biasone came up with the idea, and he spearheaded the effort. He came up with 24 seconds as the ideal time for the shot clock, basing it on the logic of teams taking an average of 60 shots a game. So you got two teams, that's 120 shots total. Divide the total number of seconds in an NBA game, which is 2,880, by 120, and you get 24. And of course, it worked. The year prior, NBA teams averaged 80 points a game. With the shot clock added for the 54-55 season, teams averaged 93 points a game. Hall of Famer Dolph Schayes, who played for Biasone's Nationals, said it was the greatest rule change in the history of basketball. Red Auerbach credited Biasone's idea for saving the game. And of course, Auerbach was on the bench coaching his Celtics on this night when the shot clock was first used. Boston came up a little bit short, though, losing 98-95 to the Royals. On this day in 1963, an event at an NHL game led to a much-needed update to hockey. And you're probably not going to believe it took this long to get to this point. So on this night at Maple Leaf Gardens, the Toronto Maple Leafs were playing the Montreal Canadiens. Two guys, Toronto's Bob Pulford and Montreal's Terry Harper, were not really known for dropping the gloves and fighting. But on this night, they did, and it would eventually change the game. Well, not so much the game itself, but the arenas in which the game was played. The disagreement started in the first period. As the two skated behind the Canadiens' net, Harper high-sticked Pulford, and they got in a little scuffle that they broke up themselves. The tempers did not dissipate, though. They merely simmered just under the surface until the two dropped the gloves in front of Montreal's bench, with Pulford dropping Harper with a right hand. Once the two were broken up, penalties were assessed, and the two entered the penalty box. Now, at this point in time, the penalty box was not divided. It was shared. There was an older, retired gentleman there to make sure the time was administered, but he was off to the side, not in between, and he still wouldn't have been very effective if he had. So the two guys who just had a beef with each other had been placed in a small, confined space to discuss their differences a little bit more. It's not too hard to understand that words were exchanged between the two, and it wasn't, "Hey Terry, how's the wife and kids?" Harper admits to saying something to Pulford, but never discussed the specifics. Pulford took umbrage to whatever was said, stood up and started pounding on Harper again. This game was being televised on Canadian television, and Commissioner Clarence Campbell was at the game, seated just a few rows behind the now full-on conflagration in the box. And here's the thing. It's not that this fight taking place was a surprise. It's that it hadn't really happened before. The NHL traces its founding back to 1917, but let's just go with the original 6 that got going in 1942. That is 21 years before anyone thought putting 2 guys who'd been beating on each other on the ice might not be a good pairing in the sin bin with nothing separating them. But the Harper-Pulford fight in the box finally got people thinking along those lines. It took 10 days to get it set up, but on November 8, 1962, Maple Leaf Gardens added a divider to the penalty box. The Montreal Forum was next in line for the addition, and it was suggested that all the other NHL arenas should do the same. So the next time you see 2 guys heading to the box to serve 5 for fighting, think about what it might be like if there was not a divider between those 2. On this day in 2013, it was the conclusion of the RE/MAX Long Drive Championship. This particular long drive championship was a bit unique, though. Instead of a golf course or maybe a driving range designed to hold monster drives, the event was held at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, another great place to go for a drive. They put the tee box and the grandstands elevated 70 feet above Turn 4, and they carved a 52-yard wide fairway down the front stretch of the tri-oval in the infield grass between the racetrack and pit road. It came down to Orlando's Tim Burke and England's Joe Miller.
Oh, he loves it! Fist pump from Tim Burke. Does it have the distance?
Oh, look how long that's in the air. Goodbye.
And it's it.
Goodbye.
It's over 420, and Tim Burke has won the 2013 RE/MAX World Drive Championship.
Burke's drive finished up 427 yards away in the short grass. The event was unique in another way as well. It was a winner-take-all event. So Burke walked away with $250K. Miller got zilch. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Andre the Giant was a legend, not only in the wrestling ring and for his role as Fezzik in The Princess Bride, but also as a legendary drinker. At 7 feet 4 inches tall, 550 pounds, a drunk Andre could be a dangerous Andre. Well, during one heavy drinking session in New York City, Andre passed out and he fell, by mistake, on a bystander, injuring them. Now that prompted the NYPD to assign a police officer to shadow Andre whenever he was in town and he went out on the town drinking, so that he would not pass out and injure anybody else. That's all for now. Check back tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.